lecture in SQA days. My name is Max and I'm going to have a lecture. This is Renat. Raul. He's working in Skype and for the last 6.5 years he's working with Skype at outsourcing of testing. And I give the word for him to tell about this.
Hello, good morning everyone. It's good to see so many of you here. So I will be talking to you what I have learned as running the outsourcing for Skype testing and what is important for us and what has happened during that time. But first, few words about myself. I have been in Skype for about 7.5 years. About 6.5 years of that time I have been taking care of software outsourcing for testing services. It's not my first time to be in here in Lviv. I have been here about 5 or 6 times before, and I have been working with some of the companies who are situated in Lviv. And as a title, I have also been working on the beta program of Skype, which is testing of the Skype applications by volunteers before we release those products to live. And then been working as well as Scrum Master and doing some corporate blogging for Skype. But now, let's go forward to the outsourcing part. And I have one ask for you. If you get any questions during my presentation, then please don't wait till the end of the presentation, but just disturb and ask them straight away, because then the topic is still fresh for everyone. So first, to start, to talk a bit about my experience, here's the world map where I have put points there to all of the locations where we have partners with whom I have worked. As you can see, I have one here in Ukraine, then plenty of those around Europe and also in the United States, Canada, South America, and multiple locations in Asia. The engagement sizes are very different what we have had with different locations. Our biggest partners, I would say, right now are in Ukraine and are in India. But for experience-wise, it has been very, very good to work with other companies around the globe. And I can talk you, for example, we had a need to go and do on-spot testing in Indonesia. And then I was figuring it out how to go and find a partner in Indonesia while I'm sitting in Estonia. And I don't know anyone there in Indonesia. And how I can find a good company whom I can trust there and who can do a good job for us. Why we needed to go there was that we had a partnership with one local telecom operator for whom we needed to deploy our applications for their mobile, but we needed to do on-spot testing because their network quality is completely different than what you are used to in Europe. In Europe, our mobile phone network quality is that about 1 or 2% of calls will drop. But in Indonesia, for example, the call drop rate is in tens of percents of calls. And then we needed to build a data application on top of it. And data usually works much worse than the calling works. So it was a huge challenge for us. Similarly, finding the partner there in Indonesia. But in the end, we managed to find a very good local partner there who has about 10 employees in total, who's not connected to any global brand at all, and who works for us very well for extremely reasonable prices. But more, what we will talk today more is, first of all, I will talk what's important for me when I'm buying. When I want to buy your service, as probably many of you work on the companies which sell services, what we want to hear from you and what are the things that are really important for us. Then, common misunderstandings, what happened there. For example, scope of work, which is very common, which gets a bit messed up. Like the customer thinks something, the company doing it thinks something else, and then it keeps kind of changing during the project sometimes. Then also, when running RFPs and tenders, probably all of the companies doing that service have a lot of experience there. What are the things to find there, and what are the things what to do and what not to do. Because there's some things what, by my experience, have happened with few companies, which I would not like to have happening again. And then some formula for success from our side. So, what's important for us as a buyer when we buy the service? Is it the price or quality? When you think of what usually companies talk when they want to come and buy a service from you. Probably first thing what they talk about will be quality. But then if you go a bit forward, you get into discussions, you get to know the pricing, then it will be performance on a way, what they will be looking or talking again together with the quality. But then the price will hit them. They will get to know how much it costs. Then many of the companies and people will go to look at the price very heavily and make the decisions on top of it. But by my experience, looking at the price solely is very bad thing what to do. And also a very bad thing what to offer. Because if your only value proposition is to offer a cheap price, then I don't think you can have a very good long-term business there. Because with the cheap price usually goes together with the cheap quality as well. At least by my experience, where I have had to deal once with a company who was contracted on a way because of very cheap price, where we needed to end that contract very fast in the end. So actually what I'm looking when contracting new company, I always look on ratios. I look at the ratio of the quality, performance and the price. Because I need to make it comparable for myself. I don't want to look at any of those single matters, because how I can compare a company here in Lviv with a company maybe in Romania or with a company maybe in Estonia. It's very, very hard to get the data comparable for yourself, because the cost base for the companies is extremely different. The salary level here is something. The salary level in Estonia is many times higher for IT people. So we need to look at something very different than just pricing. But for us, when we outsource something, first of all, the most important thing for us is always quality. As if you think of Skype, we have hundreds of millions of users. And for us, having something with low quality as work done, in the end, it will cost so much more than contracting someone who can deliver high quality. And I think it's the same for smaller user bases also. Having something which you need to plumb later on and fix later on, it won't really work out for you. So better avoid offering that kind of low quality and low price service also.
Question.
Yeah.
How do you measure quality? Do you have, for example, you asked me, do you have high quality organization? Yes, sure. We have high quality.
Yeah, how I measure it is that when I do a tender to find a new partner, then I give them a test task. And I ask them to execute the test task. And based on the test task results, I can make very good assumptions already. Of course, it won't give me the full quality picture, because doing tender, doing test task, you can put much more resources in there than to the regular work you would put. But still, when I have done tenders, I have seen very big difference between the quality of different companies. And by my experience, the company who puts more efforts to do very good tender has in the end much better quality as well. And also when doing the tenders, we are not looking only on the quality when we do the test. We usually add there some questions which require analysis by you. And we put their questions to where we know the answer very well. And we want to see what answer you will come up. And then we compare it with ours. We know that your answer won't be 100% correct, but it should be plus minus 30 to 40% in most cases. But if you're 2 or 3 times off, then we will know that you didn't pay attention. And if you don't pay attention, then we will just disqualify you from going forward. And it's a very good way to make a difference there between the ones who actually put efforts in and the ones who don't. So, to go to the misunderstandings of the scope and what happens with the scope, and one of the things that I have noticed with quite some of our test leads with whom I have worked for whom to outsource is that if they have some project, then sometimes they get to a thought that they would like to do it in a way that they have a fixed timeline when you need to deliver, then they want to get a fixed price for it. But can you do it really? And then they of course think that they have a scope or they have a plan what you need to do. But can you actually have that, all three things together? I don't think you can have it because you can think of the scope, but are you really able to write down scope for 3 months or 6 months? Or even worse, I have known some other companies than Skype who want to get fixed pricing for multiple years of work on a fixed scope. Can you really get anything like that? I don't think you can get anything, or at least I don't think you can get anything good, because you will have flaws on your scope. And the longer the period gets, the more flaws you have there. And you will figure out most of the flaws when you start going. When you develop the first batch of it, then you will see the initial flaws. There's a very good, yeah.
So the question is, have you ever tried utilizing some sort of like paid not per the full scope, but doing the pricing model like per single regression run or per single test run?
Yes, we have done this, and what we usually do is we contract the workforce for the exact work what now needs to be done. If it's development, then for example, to buy in agile development, like we buy in the workforce to do sprints, and we leave it empty, it open for us what the scope will be, because then we can change the scope on the fly because we don't have any fixed agreement with you. And same with testing, like with doing regression tests or any other tests, we don't want to fix the price of a test run even, because one test run to next test run, the workforce need can be a bit different. And what I believe is the more I want to fix the pricing or the other methods, the more you will start to mitigate your risks. And mitigating risks means that you will start to pump the price there. And for us, if we have the capability of executing in-house, then it's better to leave those risks not mitigated and taking the risks to our side. And for like regression run for us, from one release to another, the test effort might differ maybe 5 or 10%. And you can't really do estimates for every run if you do multiple runs every month, for example. But to go for the scope, there's very easy exercise what to do. And also when you talk with your customers and they want to get fixed things, do this exercise with them. Take A4 paper, draw on the A4 paper really simple objects, extremely simple, like this. Triangle and arrow. And then ask them. Ask a person, please write it down. Describe it on paper as text. And then the text what you get, give it to a person who didn't see the picture. And the person who didn't see the picture, ask him to draw it. And then compare the results. Usually what happens is you will get something like that. It's quite close, but the color is different, the size is different. It's just a line, arrow is missing. And then, now you need to think, these objects, they are extremely simple. Very simple objects. Compare it with your software what you're developing. It's 10 or 100 times more complex. And then, can you really write the spec? Even for a few weeks. Usually when I see development in sprints, even in 2-week development sprints, they're making mistakes. But think of longer period. You can't. And then what you will hit there, there will be first of thing, you will have an iceberg effect. That there's the things what you know, and there's the things what's really hidden there. And now, the longer and the longer you go, and the longer you want to fix something, the worse it will get, because all the errors, they are only growing exponentially. It's no linear growth, because errors will build on top of errors. And yeah, I'm not sure I would like to be somewhere there. And also, when you get that kind of fixed scope contracts, then what I have seen, what happens often is that the companies who offer that, they offer a reasonable good price for whatever you have spec'd out, and then they give their a quote, additional work, 1 hour costs whatever, and then you need to start fixing your scope, and you need to start paying these extra hours, extra work, what you need to order because your input documentation was bad. This is something what I, as a person who buys, want to oversee always, and this is something what I would really suggest to many of you as selling the service to other companies to talk about it to them, especially the ones who might not be IT companies by themselves and who want to get service in. And by my experience, it's the hardest with these companies who are not on IT field by their full-time profession, because their ability to execute something is much, much slower than the IT companies have. And I was just giving a presentation a few weeks ago to one of the outsourcing companies in Estonia, and they were thinking how we can sell it. And they were like describing what they do and how they can sell it. And then after we discussed a bit, then they understood that, hey, why not? Why we can't sell to government sprints? We just need to make the government project managers aware enough that they will actually save a lot of money with it. But it's very hard. I think it's especially hard with government, because they are often attached to laws which aren't that open to open-ended contracts, or contracts with not specified deliverable, or not well-specified deliverable. But to go more forward to the RFPs and executing RFPs. So first thing, what I have noticed with many companies with whom I have worked when doing RFPs, everyone knows what RFP is? Just asking. No. RFP is basically a tender process where you are contracting a company where I send out my documentation and where I want the price offers from you and the workforce offers or the service offers. And where I want to get the comparison between different companies to choose the best company for myself. What I have seen when doing those RFPs is that I usually go and talk with the potential bidders beforehand, before sending out the official RFP. Because in the end, I don't want to waste their time and our time. I want to detect that they are actually interested in it and they have the capabilities to do it. But when discussing with the companies, I have found out that many of them will start to offer help to you to put together the RFP documentation, or to look the documentation over with you. If you start to think what's their idea with doing it, of course they want to get the documentation on a way that it fits very well for them. So as a buying company, I'm happy to talk with them, because sometimes I'll figure out things that I have forgotten really. But I will not really take any help and use the help on a straight offered way. Always to look over myself to figure out that is it actually beneficial for me also, or is it beneficial only to the company offering the service. And on that way, talking with multiple companies, it usually yields in good things, because mostly on RFPs you will make mistakes by yourself as well. You will forget some parts of it, what you need to take care of and what you need to foresee. Then, when running the RFPs, setting up the questions, you usually have a set of questions or a set of validation criteria what you send to the companies. What I have found out is that the most important things what to ask there is to ask company to analyze something, what I told before on one question, because these analyses actually give you the best information. The static information what the company can write you in and what they will always write you in, this is mostly no use. Because all of the companies, when they are bigger, they are very, very good on selling themselves. They have very highly paid, very well doing salespersons. They can write up really, really good stories. But sometimes the stories and the real life don't go together. And sometimes the company who's maybe not that really good on selling themselves may be much better on really executing the work. And you want to get their real conversions and the real data in. Because sales pitches or sales talks, they are all different from all different companies. And you can't really compare. The only thing what you can do is, will you trust it or not? But when you put the analysis there, then you have real comparative data on what you can make the decisions and on what you can see the quality or the performance. And you can also see when having a proper questions, both the quality and the performance. Like on one of the RFPs where I was contracting for manual regression testing resources, as a job I attached their set of our test cases, and I asked the potential vendors to estimate how long they would execute it. I knew the amount how long it gets executed. There was one company who offered that they will do it 7 times faster than what I know the speed to be. And their hourly price was about twice cheaper than regular, like average price was on the offer. I didn't really go forward because it felt sneaky. It's like if it's too good, then it's probably not really true. And then there were, on the other hand, some companies who offered that they will do it about 3 times slower than the average what I know is to be there. And at the same time, at least one of them offered twice higher price as well. Which, again, gives the thoughts there. How they did the evaluation, did they do anything? Or what they thought there.
You need to know how many resources they have to execute the task. It depends on resources.
No, I asked on there the average time for single test case. Single test case, it's small enough.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to big picture.
For one single test case?
Yes. I gave them example set of test cases just to analyze and then to give average over all of those. Which meant that they needed to do quite a bit of work, and there were some companies who got it nearly the same what number we know. There were few whose fault percentage was less than 10. And there was some more who were really, really close. And in the end, we decided to go forward with the ones who were very close to our numbers, what we knew. And also when we asked them to do that kind of evaluation, then we know what they offered to us. Later on, when we went to contract with some, we know what they are delivering to us later on. And with that data, we were able to calculate the ratios, and we were able to calculate the cost to execute single test case. And with that, we were able to compare the companies with different prices. Like there could be a company who offered, let's say, example, $5 an hour and 10 minutes per test case. Or there was a company who offered $10 an hour and 5 minutes a test case. In the end, the price for you is the same if they keep to their promise. And through that way, you get it comparable. But also, to go forward, yeah, you had a question. To go forward, what I have always seen as a problem when doing the RFP is that when I talk with the persons, then they start to tell that, hey, we want to get an automation engineer. I have had many times people come to me like that. Yeah, automation engineer, who it could be. It could be someone what skill set. And when doing RFPs and when doing what we need to do as customers for you is that we need to really, really well define what we actually want, what skill set we want, because otherwise you offer us like something like that. When I grow up, I'm going to be an automation engineer. It's for anything what you want to buy, you need to be really, really well defining what kind of thing you are going to buy in the end. Because otherwise you will get something like that maybe, or the one who wants to be the automation engineer, but this is something what you will get if you go for a cheap price. If you go for the absolute cheapest possible price, then you will get something very funky usually. I have experience with seeing some funky companies. Unfortunately, one was here in Ukraine, and I have seen some in Asia, where someone had contracted them and they had cheap pricing, but the quality was bad. And it was, the only reasonable thing with these companies was to end the contract as fast as possible and get out of that situation, because really you don't want to get anything like that where you don't have the skill set in place. So, and to go forward, when doing the RFP, one of the very hard things with all of those questions and all of the data what gets fed into you from the companies is to get it comparative. What happens is that sometimes the companies want to start offering their own solutions instead of what you have asked for. And to be honest, those solutions can be better than what you ask for sometimes. But if you have 3 companies whom you ask for a quote, they all offer their own solution instead of what you asked for. Can you compare anything in the end? Not really. You will have apples, oranges and bananas there. But when you run a tender or RFP, the purpose of it is to get it all comparable, to get it to the same base level. And what I would suggest from buyer side is that if I see that one company on the tender is offering much better solution than what we thought of, and what is completely out of the RFP, is that then it's better to change the RFP, meet the process, to still be comparable and to still get the best result from everyone. Because when you go to the RFP, you're not really obligated to finish it also, or to finish it exactly on the terms. You can always make it longer and give the others opportunity to offer the same kind of service what someone said to you, and which is better what you asked in the beginning. Because when you are asking for some complex service, then sometimes you have the problem that you don't have exactly that deep knowledge on that specific field yourself. That can be really the reason why you are outsourcing someone, as they have the better knowledge than you have. So that's something really to look for. Make sure you get all the data comparable. And also when you are offering, and if you want to offer your own solution, then offer the solution what was asked, and then offer in addition the solution what you think what is better. Because then the company who runs it can still have the comparative data and can see how you are doing on the item what they wanted. And you really don't need to go into contract exactly on the terms or on the conditions and on the work what you put into the RFP in the beginning. Afterwards, when you have selected the winner, you can change it a bit together between both companies on the negotiations, especially if the company has some very good ideas set which will make it better in the end. Going to a contract, signing a contract, it's always a good experience. And I would have one very big suggestion for all the legal people. I don't know if you have any legal people on your side or if you are high-level leaders in your company. Make sure your legal people really help the company. And because the legal people, what's their job? Their job is to help the company to do business. Their job is not to stop the business. I have seen a company with whom I did a contract where I had to sit together with the legal people for a few days in a conference room to figure out the details of the contract. And they started and they asked to change synonyms on a contract. It's not a good thing what to do. You should not really want to change any synonyms on a contract, especially if the synonyms difference when you talk with them later on doesn't make any difference at all. There are sometimes when it makes difference, but there are often the cases where it doesn't make any difference. And sometimes it feels for me that the legal people are asking a lot of changes to the contract because they want to assure that they are needed in the company. They want to keep their jobs. I have seen there are companies who come, to whom I give our standard contract, and who come back with making it completely red absolutely everywhere, trying to change nearly everything. But I can say for our contracts, they are not really one-sided contracts, but they are really like thinking for the both sides. There are set of terms what some companies want to change, nothing against it. The contract is coming out always from the discussions and you need to get a win-win result. But you should not really make it completely red when you have, in the end, no real reason to make it red. And with the company who made it for me really red, we needed to delay the start of the project about a month due to it. And they had built the team. We were going to train the team. In the end, they needed to pay for the team for the full month by themselves. And we didn't get that much the service, and what we got a free training period from them. Because we already had planned to go there to their location and to train the people. And we didn't want to cancel that because that would have added additional costs. Then we managed to agree with them that they take it all to their costs fully. But I think it was bad result for that company as well. And in the end, the business guys there finally managed to highlight that those issues to so high level that in the end they said that they will drop employees around the globe. And by my experience, usually it's easier to do contracts with smaller companies than with the bigger ones. Because smaller companies are often much more reasonable on what they ask and what they don't ask. And not because they do a contract with a big company, but because they actually pay attention. And also with the contracts, make sure you read all the papers, what you get sent. Because I have seen the fact that when I sent to a company three documents what we need to sign, they forgot to read one of them. And it's also nothing really good. Really, pay the attention to all of the documents what get sent to you. So, but formula to success from my side as company and what to do. So, whenever you get there, whenever you have the contract running or the program running, when you need to go and read the contract terms, then it's all over. The work should really go on a way that you never need to read anything on the contract. Because most probably you won't follow it fully. And if you start to read, then you don't have trust. But trust is very important. You need to build up the trust. And you need to build up the trust not only between the management, but also with the line employees. And between your line employees and their line employees.
How can you build the trust within the first months of relationship?
That's one of the things that I will talk. First thing, how to build trust, sit on a plane and fly there. And stay there for 1 or 2 weeks. It's very, very important to go to meet the people. And when you go and meet the people, what I have noticed is that the management of the outsourcing companies, they often want to spend all the time with you. But what actually I want to do, I don't want to spend my time with the management. I will get along with them anyway, because that's their goal to get along with us very well, and that's our goal also. But with whom I really want to get along is the line workers there. And I want to show out our appreciation to the line workers because the line worker who does the real job, they are the only ones who lay the golden eggs. They're the ones who write your application. They're the ones who test your application. If they're happy and satisfied, and if they see that you value them, then you will get good results. And then, when going over, spend the time with the employees. Spend the time with the regular employees. And really go with them to dinners, invite them out to dinners, go with them to lunch. I had one experience where I was training out a new company, and the management all wanted to have time with us constantly, and they didn't really want us to be too much with the employees there. And they had we were able to be with the team in the beginning. After we have arrived to the office, greeted the management, so on, then we had a few hours then to be with the team. Then we had the lunchtime, organized in some fancy place or in special area, only for the management, of course. And then some time more with the team. After second day, what we did was that we said, now, yeah, that's enough with the fancy places. We will go to cafeteria where your team will eat. They were a bit afraid because the cafeteria wasn't looking really good. They were offering food from metal plates, which for us maybe resembles a bit of prison. Like big metal plate, and then they put food like that there. Not very, maybe very good conditions, but we wanted to go there. The management faces went really bad when we said that now we are going there. Then we came back, but the people were really happy there. And by that, in there, the people had brought the food from their home to the office as well. And then on the food table, everyone shared the food. So we got a very good experience to ourselves on the local culture. And then the next day came, and we said, yeah, we will go back there to the lunch again with the team. The management faces were again very, very bad. Why you are going there? It's not that good place. But we said we can be with the people and we can make the team happy there. And later on now, when we have been working with that company for a while, they said that we have been completely different than most of the other companies. That they have customers from other companies where the contracting company wants to go to really high-star restaurants, spend time there, etc., to go to really fancy places. But from our side, we see that's really not the formula for success. The formula for success is to devote your efforts to the employees, because you need to build a relationship with them, and you don't have that much time to build a relationship with them. Because if you are contracting a bit bigger team, then usually you have a team lead on the vendor side, and you're unable to talk constantly with every single employee there. And you can't talk if you have 20 people there or more. It's just impossible to keep the contacts with everyone and keep talking with them constantly. So whenever you go, so also one more thing, make sure you know the culture wherever you go. If you go to Asia, you don't really go and shake hands. But if you go to Ukraine, you shake the hand. And just know it makes a really, really big difference if you know the local culture. Same for the companies. If someone comes to visit to you, learn a bit about their culture. They are very happy if you can show something out what is usual for them. Then communications. Whenever you talk, the richer communications you can have, the better. You have the time zone difference or you have the location difference. Use the richest possible communication methods. Put on a wall TVs like there. Have a live video calls between the offices. It makes it much, much better to keep the relationships running. Put the video screens to kitchen, where you go to take coffee. Whenever on both offices people go to a kitchen, they can just chat about whatever they want to. Have occasional chats. These things keep the communications running. And they keep the people running. But as said, don't put too much effort to that guy. put the efforts to these guys behind. And yeah, it's a teamwork, and acknowledge that it's fully a teamwork, and you need to have the full team buy-in to get the good results. So, and that's it from my side. Any questions? Comments?
Question is on processes on the side of companies. Do you care about processes? I mean, processes. One company could be a agile company, and another could be like waterfall, and another company you just don't have processes. So, do you care about processes?
You mean working process?
Project management and processes and...
Yeah, we are following Agile. Scrum mostly, but also some other forms of Agile are being followed.
You're looking for partners to implement Agile and Scrum?
Depending on the work, but if we will contract any development side work, then usually we look for partners who can implement the same. And we follow those rule sets always, and also for testing works. Especially if we get people to work together with inside our teams, then they need to get familiar with Agile, either by trainings or by reading something. We don't often require formal training, because you can get the same quality by reading the documentation or reading the guides.
You practice time and material for Java?
Yes, mostly time and material.
So that's good for your partners?
Yeah, and on that side we always look for win-win solutions. I think we need to be happy and the partner needs to be happy, and we need to acknowledge that the partner needs to make profit also. Because otherwise, if you start to push your own terms everywhere too much, you can't get a good result in the end, and we always value long-term relationships.
Do I understand correctly that you prefer buying teams? So, for example, you buy time of a test lead and a couple of test engineers, and you, or manager from your side, gives them tasks on a daily or on a weekly basis, right?
Yes, it depends also on a project from our side.
Mm-hmm.
We might buy test lead and a couple of testers. We sometimes might buy only a couple of testers and have the leads from our side.
Okay, so my question was, do you have projects where your in-staff test engineers work side by side on with equal rights with out-staff test engineers?
Yes.
And which is usually percentage between both teams, I mean in-staff and out-staff, which is better from your perspective?
From our perspective, what we always try to have is that we want to keep the technical knowledge in-house. We always want to have our own engineers on the project, so that we never want to be dependent on a vendor.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get two vendors to do similar job or the same job, just to balance our risks out and to balance out the public holidays. Like in Ukraine, you have on specific days you have public holidays. In Asia, there's the Chinese New Year for 1 week where no one works. And same in Ukraine in the beginning of January, where nearly no one works. And but we need to keep running on all of those times, so we can balance it out when we have multiple vendors there. And having multiple vendors on similar job is also giving the vendor always a understanding that there's the competition for the work, and they won't get lazy.
It sounds really reasonable. And do you have projects when two different vendors work on the same task? For example, the same regression test run?
We can have, but not very often. It's for manual testing, it's easier. For manual testing runs, we might have it happening like that. But for more deeper work, we usually don't want to have different vendors working in the same team. And whenever we will outsource development, then we want to outsource the testing and the development from the same company, not from the different companies. Because then you will get much better quality, and you can have the team sitting physically together in one office, which is a huge, huge value.
Thank you. And one more question from my side, please. If you are buying a team, which guarantees do you ask for from the vendor? I mean, like, for example, if somebody misses a defect or if the quality is poor.
We usually don't want to really punish vendors because we acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes, but we are looking at the quality, and what we are looking at mostly is that you should not do repeatedly the same mistakes. If we see one person repeatedly missing items, then we will ask the person to be replaced, for example, or we might have some quality clauses there. And it depends on works a lot. I know on one type of work where the vendor needs to do some localization, and we have agreement with there's agreement that at the end there's 20 tests what we will do ourselves, and the vendor knows those 20 tests, and the agreement is whenever any of those 20 tests fails, then we won't pay. But there, you know fully what we will be testing and on what environment we will be testing. And if it still fails there, then it's really, really big mistake from a vendor, because I as a vendor will test it double over those 20 items, what we have agreed to be tested.
Thank you.
We'll run out of the time, so thank you very much. As far as you're in Ukraine, so let me shake your hand.